Part 1. My brother said I wasn't really his brother. I laughed, until I did a DNA test. So? I never thought I'd be that guy writing a long family drama on Reddit, but here we are. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin because this whole thing has turned my brain inside out. It feels surreal to even type it out, like maybe if I see it in writing it'll start to make sense. Anyway, here's what happened. It started in the dumbest way possible. My brother and I were sitting on the back porch of my parents' house a few months ago. We had just grilled burgers, cracked open some beers, and we were talking crap the way siblings do. He's 2 years older than me, let's call him Matt. He's always had this smug older brother thing, but he's also my best friend, so I let it slide. At some point, we got into one of those classic, "Mom likes me more" arguments. You know, the ones where it's just light-hearted ribbing. He goes, "Yeah, well, it's not even a fair fight because you're not even her real kid." I laughed so hard I almost spit out my beer. Like, come on. That's the kind of joke siblings make, right? I hit back with something like, "Right, because Mom picked me out of a catalog since I was the upgrade." We kept laughing, and I thought nothing of it. But then, when I looked at him, he wasn't laughing. He was dead serious. He said, "Dude, I wasn't joking." I rolled my eyes. Okay, sure, next you'll tell me I'm adopted and I came from Mars. But he kept that weird serious face. And here's the thing, my brother's a joker, but he's not a liar. Not about serious stuff. He goes, I wasn't supposed to tell you. Mom and Dad never wanted to. But, it's true. At that point, I got kind of annoyed. Like, what game was he playing? So I pushed him, "What the hell are you talking about?" He looked away, took a sip of his beer, and said, You're not really my brother. At least, not biologically." And I swear to God, the world did this weird tilting thing, like when you stand up too fast and get dizzy. Now, for context, I never in my life suspected anything like this. I look like my parents, or at least I thought I did. People always told me I had Dad's nose and Mom's eyes. We grew up in this completely normal, middle-class suburban bubble. Soccer practice, school plays, family vacations to Florida. Nothing about my childhood ever screamed secret adoption plot twist. So I told him to cut the crap. But he doubled down. He said when he was a teenager, he overheard Mom and Dad fighting about it. Apparently Dad didn't even want to tell him, but Mom thought he had a right to know, and they argued. Matt said he pretended not to hear, but later, when he asked Dad, Dad told him the truth. According to Matt, Mom couldn't have kids after him, so they found another way. That phrase stuck with me, found another way. It sounded so vague, like it could mean anything, IVF, sperm donor, adoption. But Matt didn't know specifics. He just knew they told him, "Don't tell your brother." And of course, being the golden child, he obeyed, until he got a few beers in him that night. I wish I could say I brushed it off, but it started eating at me immediately. Like a splinter under the skin. Suddenly I was replaying every family photo, every holiday, every time someone had ever said, "You look just like your dad," with this paranoid voice in my head whispering, "Do I, though?" I didn't confront my parents right away. Honestly, I was scared. I didn't want to blow up my entire life over something that might have been my brother screwing with me. But curiosity turned into obsession. I'd catch myself staring at old baby photos, comparing facial features. I even Googled signs you're adopted like some kind of idiot. Finally, I cracked. I decided to order one of those DNA kits, you know the ones. It felt kind of silly, but I told myself it would put my mind at ease. Except, it didn't. The day the kit arrived, I swear I sat there staring at the little tube like it was a ticking bomb. I kept thinking, what if this actually changes everything? But in the end, curiosity won. I spat in the tube, sealed it up, and mailed it off. Then came the longest wait of my life. Those few weeks were torture. I'd check my email compulsively. Meanwhile, every interaction with my parents felt like it had a spotlight on it. Like, when my mom hugged me, I caught myself thinking, is this fake? Is she pretending? It was horrible, because I love my parents. They've always been good to me. But that seed of doubt poisoned everything. And then the results came in. I don't know how many of you have done those DNA tests, but the way the results load is almost cruel. You don't just get a big neon sign saying yes or no. Instead, you get this dashboard with percentages, family connections, little maps of where your DNA comes from. I remember staring at the screen, heart pounding, scrolling through the matches. And that's when I noticed it. My closest relative on the site wasn't my dad. It wasn't even anyone with my dad's last name. The top match, labeled parent/child, was my mom. But there was nothing, absolutely nothing, tying me to the man I'd called dad my whole life. It was like getting punched in the stomach. I just sat there, refreshing the page like maybe it was a glitch. But the truth was right there in front of me. Biologically, my dad isn't my dad. I wish I could end part 1 here, but it gets worse. Because once I started digging into the DNA relatives section, I realized something even stranger. I had matches, close matches, that I didn't recognize at all. People with last names I'd never heard of, clustered around a city I've never lived in. And the closer I looked, the more it hit me. There's a whole other family out there. One I've never met. One that, according to genetics, I belong to. And the kicker? One of them had messaged me. Just a short, polite note. Hey, looks like we're closely related. Do you know if you have family from city name? I didn't even know how to respond. So here I am, writing this out because I honestly don't know what to do next. Do I confront my parents? Do I message that stranger back? Do I tell my brother I actually went through with the test? Everything feels like it's hanging by a thread. My entire life, every memory, feels like it might not be what I thought it was. And part of me is terrified that if I pull on this thread, the whole thing will unravel. TLDR, my brother drunkenly told me I wasn't really his brother. I laughed it off, but ordered a DNA test to prove him wrong. The test came back, my mom is my biological mother, but my dad isn't my biological father. Now there's a whole other family connected to me, and one of them has already reached out. I don't know what the hell to do. Part 2, the night I confronted my parents about the DNA results. Okay, so a lot of you wanted an update after my first post. I honestly didn't expect that much attention or the DMs asking for the tea, but here we are. I'm still a mess, but I promised I'd share what happened when I finally decided to confront my parents. And holy sh*t, it was worse than I imagined. The confrontation didn't happen right away. I sat on those DNA results for almost 2 weeks, carrying them around like a live grenade in my pocket. Every time I saw my dad, or I guess I should start saying, the man I thought was my dad, I froze up. Like, I wanted to scream, "Who are you to me?" But instead I just nod, smile, and ask him to pass the salt. It felt like living in a play where everyone else knew their lines except me. Finally, one night, I snapped. I was at my parents' house for dinner. Mom made her lasagna, comfort food classic, and it was just the 3 of us because Matt was working late. Dinner was normal. Too normal. Dad was talking about football, Mom was talking about a neighbor's new puppy, and I couldn't take it anymore. I blurted out. So, when were you guys planning on telling me Dad isn't my biological father? I don't know if you've ever seen 2 people freeze in sync, but that's exactly what happened. Forks clattered, both of them went pale. Mom's face dropped like I'd just cursed in church. Dad's jaw tightened so hard I thought he might crack a molar. Mom whispered, "Who told you that?" And I, being the coward that I am, said, "It doesn't matter. I know. I have proof." Dad's eyes narrowed. "What proof?" So I told them. The DNA test. The results. The message from the stranger. Everything. The silence that followed was suffocating. like the whole house was holding its breath. Finally, Mom started crying. Dad just stared at me like I was some stranger who'd broken into his house. When Mom finally spoke, her voice was shaking. She said, "We were going to tell you. Someday. When the time was right." I laughed, not in a funny way, but in that ugly, bitter way you laugh when you're about to lose it. The time was right? I'm 28 years old. When exactly was that magical right time going to happen? At my wedding? At your funeral? Dad slammed his hand on the table. Watch your tone. That almost set me off, but I bit back, because I needed answers more than I needed to vent my rage. So I asked, "Who's my father?" That's when the real story started spilling out. Turns out, after Mom had my brother, she had complications. Something went wrong, she wouldn't give me all the medical details, and the doctors told her she couldn't have more children naturally. Dad apparently took it really hard. They both did. After a year of trying and failing, they decided to explore other options. Adoption was one. IVF was another. But the route they took, and this is the kicker, was using a sperm donor. So yeah. That's why I share DNA with Mom, but not Dad. I wasn't adopted, but half of me comes from a complete stranger. At least, that's what I thought at first. When Mom said, "sperm donor," I felt this weird mix of relief and devastation. Relief, because it meant my mom was still my mom. Devastation, because I'd just been told half my identity came from a faceless, nameless donor. I asked, "Okay, so who was the donor? Was it anonymous? Some clinic?" And that's when Mom's tears turned into full-on sobbing. Dad muttered something under his breath that I couldn't catch. I pressed harder. "What aren't you telling me?" Finally, Dad snapped. He stood up, pushed his chair back so hard it scraped the floor, and stormed out of the kitchen. I heard the back door slam. Which left me with Mom. And after what felt like an eternity, she said it. It wasn't anonymous. It wasn't from a clinic. It was someone we knew. I felt sick. Like, physically sick. My stomach turned over, my hands were shaking, my ears were ringing. I said, "Who?" over and over, like maybe if I kept repeating it, she'd give me a different answer. And then she whispered a name. A name I recognized. It was one of Dad's oldest friends. A guy I grew up calling Uncle. Someone who used to come to our barbecues, who bought me birthday presents, who taught me how to ride a bike when Dad was stuck late at work. That's who my biological father is. I don't even remember leaving their house that night. One second I was in the kitchen staring at my mom's tear-streaked face, and the next I was in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I sat there for an hour, shaking, replaying my entire childhood in my head, trying to separate what was real from what was a lie. The worst part? The more I thought about it, the more I realized there were signs. Subtle, but they were there. People always said I looked different from Dad. My hair is darker, my build is stockier. I always brushed it off as normal variation, but now? Now I can see the truth written all over my face. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Around 3 a.m., I texted Matt, "You were right. DNA test confirmed it. He's not my dad." Matt called me instantly. His voice was groggy, but when I told him the rest, the part about Dad's friend, he went dead silent. Then he whispered, "Holy sh**t." We didn't say much after that. Just sat on the line breathing, two brothers who suddenly weren't exactly brothers in the way we thought. The days after that were weird. Dad didn't call me. Mom texted a few times, begging me to come over and talk it out. I ignored her. I couldn't face them. Not yet. Instead, I started digging. Remember those DNA matches I mentioned in part 1? The ones clustered around a city I'd never lived in? Yeah, I went back and looked again. And guess what? That city is where Uncle lives. Or at least, where he lived last I heard. I matched with several people who are almost certainly his relatives. Cousins. Nieces. Maybe even half-siblings. And one of them, the person who messaged me before, followed up. They asked if I had any connection to City. They said my DNA showed we were close family, maybe even siblings. I haven't answered yet. My finger hovers over the reply button every time, but I freeze. Because once I respond, there's no going back. The craziest part? I can't stop thinking about Uncle. I haven't seen him in years, but I remember his laugh, his cologne, the way he always slipped me a 20 when I was in college and broke. And now I can't help but wonder, did he know? Was he in on it? Or did he just donate and walk away, never realizing I existed? I don't know what's worse, if he knew, or if he didn't. So that's where I'm at. Stuck in limbo. My parents are begging me to come home and move past this. My brother is angry on my behalf but also weirdly protective of mom and dad. And me? I'm sitting here with a DNA test, a secret family tree, and the knowledge that my uncle might actually be my father. And if that's true, then what the hell does that make my dad? TLDR, confronted my parents about the DNA results. Mom admitted I was conceived with a sperm donor, but not an anonymous one. My biological father is one of my dad's closest friends, a man I grew up calling Uncle. Meanwhile, DNA matches online confirm I have a whole other family, and one of them has reached out again. I haven't responded yet. Part 3, I messaged my biological family. Everything blew up. So, here it is. The final piece of this insane puzzle. If you've read my first 2 posts, you know the rabbit hole I've been tumbling down. Brother drunkenly told me I wasn't really his brother, DNA test confirmed dad isn't my biological father, and mom finally confessed the truth, my biological father is one of dad's oldest friends. A guy I grew up calling Uncle. At the end of part 2, I said I hadn't responded to the DNA match who'd reached out to me. Well, I did. And what happened after that? It changed everything. I sat on the message for days. Literally opened the app 10 times a day, typed out a reply, deleted it, closed the app, opened it again. It felt like pressing the big red button that says do not press. Finally, one night around 1 a.m., after a couple beers and too much pacing, I just did it. I wrote. Hey, yeah, looks like we're related. My mom grew up in state, but I don't know much about extended family. Do you have any idea how we might be connected? I hit send before I could chicken out. And then I didn't sleep. Again. The reply came the next morning. This person, let's call her Sarah, wrote back almost immediately. She said, "Wow, thanks for responding. I've been trying to piece this together, but from what I can tell, we're very closely related. I think we might actually be half-siblings." Half-siblings. That word hit me like a freight train. Sarah explained that her father, my uncle, had apparently been a sperm donor back in the day. She said she'd always known there might be donor-conceived siblings out there, but she never expected one to be me. I stared at her message for what felt like an hour. Half-sibling. Which meant she was my sister. Which meant her dad, our dad, knew exactly what he was doing all those years when he came to our house, played catch with me, ruffled my hair, called me buddy. And then my brain spun off into a darker thought, did my dad know which donor mom had chosen? Or did he just know it was someone he knew? I felt sick all over again. Sarah and I messaged back and forth for a while. At first it was surface-level stuff, where we grew up, what we do for work, normal small talk. But it got heavy fast. She told me she has 2 other siblings, biological, from uncle, and all 3 of them knew about the donor thing. Then she dropped the bomb, my dad is aware of all this. Do you want me to tell him you reached out? I froze. Because that was the big question, wasn't it? Did I want him to know? Did I want to open that door? Did I want to see the look on his face when he realized the kid he'd been around his whole life was actually his son? Eventually, I said yes. 2 days later, I got a message in the app. From him. "Hey. I'd really like to talk, if you're open to it." I stared at that message until my vision blurred. And then, like an idiot, I called him. Not text. Not email. Straight up phone call. He answered on the first ring. "Hello?" His voice was exactly as I remembered, warm, deep, familiar. I couldn't even speak at first. Finally, I croaked out, "It's me." There was a long pause. Then he said, "I was wondering when this day would come." That first conversation was surreal. I don't remember half of it. He told me he always knew there was a chance I'd find out. He admitted that my parents asked him for help all those years ago. He said he agreed because he loved them both, and he knew how much they wanted another child. He also said he never intended to replace my dad, and he stayed out of the way as much as possible, which, in hindsight, explains why he sort of drifted out of our lives when I was a teenager. I asked him the one question that had been eating at me: did Dad know it was you? The silence on the other end of the line told me everything before he even said the words. Yes. He knew. I don't know how to describe what that felt like. Betrayal layered on betrayal. Not only had my parents lied to me my entire life, but Dad knew every time Uncle came over for a barbecue, every time I sat on his lap as a kid, every time he gave me advice. He knew that man was my father. And he never said a word. After that call, I spiraled. I didn't answer texts, didn't go to work, barely ate. My brother came over one night, tried to snap me out of it. He said, "Look, man, Dad may not be your biological father, but he's still the guy who raised you. That counts for something." And yeah, he's right. But it doesn't erase the lie. It doesn't erase the fact that the three people I trusted most in the world all decided to keep me in the dark. Eventually, I agreed to meet Uncle. Or, my biological father. God, even typing that feels wrong. We met at a coffee shop halfway between his city and mine. I got there early, sat in the corner, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd faint. And then he walked in. He looked older, obviously, but still the same man I remembered. Same eyes. Same smile. And when I saw him, really saw him, I felt it, that undeniable connection. I look like him. The way he moves, the shape of his jaw, even his stupid habit of tapping the table when he's nervous. It was like looking into a mirror 30 years into the future. The conversation was emotional. He told me he never wanted to hurt me, or Dad, or Mom. He said he thought he was doing something good, helping a family he loved. And he admitted that he thought about me often, but stayed away because he didn't want to confuse me or make things harder for my parents. I asked him if he wanted a relationship now. He said, "Only if you want one. I'll follow your lead." And that broke me. Because as angry as I am, as betrayed as I feel, some part of me does want that. Some part of me wants to know the man who gave me half my DNA. When I left the coffee shop, I sat in my car and cried. Not just because of him, but because of everything. Because my life isn't what I thought it was. Because the foundation of my identity has cracks in it I didn't know were there. Because I love my parents, but I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive them. So where am I now? Honestly, still in the middle of it. I've started talking to Sarah more, and she's amazing, by the way. Smart, funny, kind. I can see the sibling connection already. Which is wild, because I never thought I'd have another sister. As for my parents, it's complicated. Mom keeps reaching out, trying to make things right. Dad has barely spoken to me. I think he's ashamed. Or angry. Or both. I'm going to therapy now, shout out to everyone in the comments who told me to. It helps. A little. The one thing I know for sure is this: family is so much more complicated than DNA. Yes, biology matters. Yes, secrets can destroy trust. But the people who raise you, who show up for you, who love you, they matter too. I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know if I'll ever fully reconcile with my parents, or if I'll build a new relationship with my biological father. I don't know if I'll spend Christmas with Sarah and her siblings someday. But I do know this: the truth is always better than the lie. Even when it hurts. TLDR, I replied to the DNA match. Found out I have a half-sister named Sarah, who connected me to my biological father, the man I grew up calling Uncle. We spoke on the phone, then met in person. Meanwhile, my parents are struggling to deal with the fallout. My life feels upside down, but I'm starting to rebuild, piece by piece.